Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And welcome everybody to another edition of the Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen, coming to you solo this week for the AEW Dynasty predictions show. Josh Eisenberg unable to throw his straw in the box this week. However, I will do the show solo, as I do any other week that's not a prediction show, triple threat theater, or a sip series. So you're stuck with me for about an hour. I will touch on some of the stuff that did happen over the week on Raw, this past week on SmackDown, a little preview of tonight's SmackDown emanating from PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I will be there in attendance. Can't wait for that. It's only been 2 weeks since WrestleMania, and I'm already ready for another wrestling show to attend live. As always, follow me on Twitter at Juicy Steen, at Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram. You can find the Juice Box on Apple Podcasts, Podbean at juicysteen.podbean.com, and on Spotify. If you do listen to it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, if you could give it a 5-star review, that would really benefit the show moving forward. Additionally, I know I've been hinting at it, and I will be having the YouTube page kind of up and running sooner rather than later. I'm not sure if we will be doing any actual video content just yet, but every episode of the show will be uploaded to YouTube through the RSS feed. So if that's how you listen to your podcasts, that's another option as well. So yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of WWE, a little bit of Outside the Ring, potentially, of course, preview SmackDown. And then, yeah, we'll do the Dynasty predictions as well to close the show. A little note for myself, I believe the intricacies of this and the details will be hammered out as we move closer, and of course just check social media to see, but I believe I will be a guest on at least one, if not two, separate podcast episodes and shows in the next week or so, but I will have all those details as we get closer. One of them will just be a talk show, if you will, an around the horn style talk show, and the other will be me and another co-host reviewing a retro ECW pay-per-view. So more of those details as we get closer, but I kind of got those set in motion this week, and looking forward to not having to just host this show. I will be able to relax a little bit and put forth just my knowledge and everything as a guest, which will be really, really nice. So keep tabs on that. Let's get into some of the outside the ring stuff before we dive into the rest of the Juice Box. Jon Moxley, of course, winning the IWGP World title. First person ever to hold the IWGP, AEW, and WWE World Heavyweight titles, which to me now really cementing the Shield's place in wrestling history as one of the most important factions of the modern era, if not the most important. Seth Rollins with his cash-in, his multiple world title reigns, Roman Reigns with his legendary title reign that just ended at WrestleMania, outside of all the other matches that they've had together and with other competitors, plus Jon Moxley going to AEW, really being the first true WWE guy to go to AEW, and he has been the heart and soul of AEW. Has really carried it on his back when things have gone wrong with injuries, suspensions, whatever happening. Jon Moxley is always there. So the Shield really, over the last 10 years, have really solidified themselves as incredibly important overall. And it's just amazing to see as time moves on. So we had SmackDown this past week, and boy, this was an interesting one. We finally got to, Roman's not going to be there. You've got The Rock not being there. Things are kind of just there. Cody's champion. Nothing really. The Bloodline's kind of silent, you would think. However, we did get a very interesting combination of interactions, a new character as well for the Bloodline. We had Jimmy Uso, Solo Sikoa, Paul Heyman in the ring, and they did say, Roman doesn't blame anybody that interfered in the match. He wants the Bloodline to take full accountability. And Solo, who took the mic here, which I felt was very interesting, saying that, losing does have its consequences. And he really just kind of turned his attention to Jimmy Uso. And after he hugged him and told him he loved him, Tama Tonga from behind attacked Jimmy Uso, effectively getting Jimmy Uso ostracized from the Bloodline, with Solo and Tama destroying him before Paul Heyman, who, call Roman Reigns. But as that was happening, they took Heyman's phone and destroyed it. So this leads to some interesting prophesizing. Will we get now, because, with Solo being the guy on the mic there, is it safe to assume that at this point Solo Sikoa is assuming the leadership of the Bloodline? If so, who potentially could have orchestrated that? Let's say it's The Rock, the final boss. Solo's the leader. He brings in Tama Tonga. You potentially could get a Jacob Fatu interaction. Jimmy Uso, of course, is now ostracized from the group. At some point, you'd think he'd end up with Jay. Roman Reigns would, of course, save the group at some point, the Usos, and reform the OG Bloodline. You could easily get November Survivor Series, War Games, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Solo Sikoa, and The Rock versus the Usos, Roman Reigns, maybe Sami Zayn, maybe somebody else we're not looking at. Would that not be insane? And then, of course, that would lead to Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania next year, with no title on the line, but no title really would be needed, in my opinion, if that were to happen. Of course, Tama Tonga is, I believe, the adopted son of Haku, formerly Ming. Again, definitely a part of the Bloodline as a shoot for real, which is really, really cool. But they just have so many members of the Bloodline for real, and I just think that they're going to continue to build this Bloodline quote-unquote 2.0 until we get to that breaking point. Maybe SummerSlam is where that kind of unfolds, and we get it towards Survivor Series later on with the War Games match. A lot of fantasy booking. We'll see where it goes. We did get the other part of the number one contenders. All the 2 triple threat matches happen. We do have what's going to happen now tonight. LA Knight will take on AJ Styles in a rematch of WrestleMania to get the number one contendership for Cody Rhodes' undisputed WWE title. I would believe that match takes place at Backlash in France on May 4th. We already have Damian Priest versus Jey Uso scheduled for that show. But another, a rematch from WrestleMania between AJ and LA Knight. I have a feeling that LA Knight is going to take the pin here, and AJ Styles, Cody Rhodes will get that big match former Bullet Club members, one-on-one in a huge world title match. Oddly enough, AJ Styles wrestled Dusty Rhodes for the NWA title back in, I believe, the early days of TNA. So a really cool, interaction there that could happen. And now, the card, I wouldn't say stacked, but you get Bayley versus Naomi for the WWE Women's title. And, of course, you get the AJ Styles LA Knight #1 contenders match as well. There's also going to be a fatal four-way to determine the #1 contender for the SmackDown Tag Team titles, which will be the New Catch Republic, the Street Profits, Legado de Fantasma, and the Authors of Pain. So that'll be something. A couple of huge matches set for SmackDown. That's 3 matches. Probably 1 or 2 more maybe get added, but outside of that, seems like the card for the 2-hour SmackDown is going to be tight and very important and intriguing. Of course, the draft for WWE will happen next week, I believe next Friday on SmackDown, and then the following Monday on Raw, coinciding with the NFL draft, which starts next Thursday. So really cool how they're coinciding and doing the parallels there, trying to get the buzz off the NFL draft. Smart move. They did the same thing with the kickoff for WrestleMania in Vegas as the Super Bowl was happening in Vegas. Whether WrestleMania goes to Vegas or Minneapolis remains to be seen, though. That's a little bit of outside the ring news. It's been reported now a lot of different things. Nick Khan saying, I don't know if you're going to see another outdoor East Coast WrestleMania and a stadium in April, which means probably if it happens in April, it won't be on the East Coast in an outdoor stadium. Could it happen in an outdoor stadium on the East Coast in May? Could we get WrestleMania? I've seen that one thrown around on Twitter. I did not come up with that. Thank God. But could we see a May WrestleMania? I would be fascinated if that happened to be the first time ever. I mean, it was as early as the second week of March back in the 90s and, all the way up to a couple weeks into April as we've gone through the time. So never in May, though, which would be a fascinating change. I'm not sure if it's going to be Minnesota, if it's going to be Vegas. They've both got domed stadiums, so it's not going to be an issue whether the weather sucks or not. However, I do hear that the Uber situation, the transportation situation in Minneapolis is not the best, and it probably would just be by way of taxi, which a little antiquated, but I mean, if it works, it works. We will have to see, and hopefully the next month or so, where WrestleMania 41 does end up landing. Another little outside the ring note here. Unfortunately, Matt Cardona just had surgery to repair a torn pectoral muscle. So speedy recovery. Hopefully he has a speedy and successful recovery on that injury so he can get back out there. He had tweeted earlier in the week, though, that 4 years ago, April 15th, he was released by WWE, but he says it was a blessing in disguise. He says he's forever grateful for his time in WWE, but Zack Ryder needed to die so that Matt Cardona could live. And, I put it out there on Twitter. I feel like Matt Cardona has done more for independent wrestling, independent wrestlers, just the whole scene in the last 4 years since being released by WWE than most wrestlers do an entire career. I feel like getting released by WWE was probably the best thing to ever happen to him. Outside of the successes that he did have in WWE, winning the IC title at WrestleMania 32, he lost it the next night, but just that type of success, here and there. He did win the tag titles against the Revival at WrestleMania 35 on the pre-show, but with Brian Myers, Kurt Hawkins. But outside of that, and his, of course, incredible rise and social media presence in the 2011 year really was not too high up on the card. And, as Matt Cardona, his true name, he has done unbelievable work. He has been the NWA champion. He's had numerous AEW appearances, TNA appearances. Of course, I vividly remember his death match against Nick Gage at GCW, which was insane. And to me, honestly, solidified Matt Cardona as someone who truly will put his body on the line for the business. Whether he ever does a death match again or not, I think him just doing it, in a sense, is kind of like the CM Punk UFC thing. Matt wanted to do this thing, prove he's not just a WWE guy, he's not just like a safe wrestler worker, and he just does these random solo matches that are very safe and no danger. And nope, he went and did a full-fledged death match against arguably the craziest death match wrestler of this generation, and it was damn good. And he won. So I feel like that really helped his credibility grow as an independent wrestler. Of course, I love the Major Wrestling Figure podcast. Another great venture that he and Myers and Mark Sterling from AEW put forth every single week. An inspiration for sure for this podcast, just in the sense of the dedication, the consistency, never wanting to miss a week. So that, very important to me, but it's also, just seeing other podcasts do that and have that sustainability is really inspirational, to be honest. And I'm saying that here as we record episode 75 of the Juice Box. So look how far we have come. So did discuss SmackDown. We went through some of the outside of the ring stuff, of course. Let's go to Raw before we go into Dynasty, of course. Unfortunately, Rhea Ripley had to relinquish her women's world title due to an injury, of course, sustained in the back with Liv Morgan. Clearly, it was an accident, but I think they're going to lean into the injury much like Drew McIntyre did with CM Punk. Liv is probably just going to own up to it and say, maybe not in the same words, but I prayed for this. This is what I wanted to have happen, and it did. Something akin to that, I would wager. It's unfortunate, but to me, I really think that Rhea Ripley is probably better off taking some time off, even though it was because of an injury. It was nice to, now she's off TV. She was getting a lot of cheers, even though she's arguably the biggest heel in the women's division, or at least she's portrayed that way. But the fans are 1,000% in love with her. But absence makes the heart grow fonder, and I feel that her being out, some people were saying potentially it was misogynistic that, Roman Reigns could be, not defending the title for how many months, and that's fine, but Rhea Ripley gets injured and you just strip her of the title. I understand that point, but to me, an injury is different than just, Roman not defending it at a pay-per-view for whatever reason, or a PLE for whatever reason. And I would personally think it's better that, Rhea goes out with an injury. She can fully heal the injury and not feel like she's pressured into coming back ahead of schedule or potentially re-injuring the injury. And this now gives an opportunity to another woman to get the title. And then as soon as Rhea comes back, she can lay claim for that and you get a huge match out of it. So I don't see a negative there. I do think it's a smart move. I get where people are coming from, but I think this is actually a blessing in disguise, again, like I just mentioned with Matt Cardona, but for Rhea Ripley as well. There were new tag team titles finally unveiled. The penny titles are gone. The world tag team titles are unveiled. Another circular design, pretty much in line with the new World Heavyweight Championship and the Women's World Heavyweight Championship. And I think they're really cool that they are kind of uniform in that way. So we'll see how Awesome Truth does with them, how long they'll continue to have them. We'll get to who I think could take them here in a little bit. The returning Sheamus defeated a friend of the show, Matt Presto's favorite wrestler, Ivar. It was nice to see Sheamus back. I share the same birthday as Sheamus. Sheamus had a little bit of a throwback look. He had his throwback song, and I'm here for it. Sheamus is a great, great competitor. First time wrestling since August 18th, and it's a long time, almost 8 months, and looked great. So hopefully, maybe an Intercontinental title run here or a challenge could be there with Sheamus. And we'll get to the IC title here in a moment as well. Of course, so the tag titles are changed, and DIY earned the tag title opportunity now to go against Awesome Truth. The Creed Brothers and New Day were the other two teams in that triple threat. Again, we'll get to the Creed Brothers here in a moment as well. Andrade and Dominic Mysterio had a match. Andrade got the win. Nothing really else to say there. I'm not really going to go over too many of the other matches. Not too much actually happened. Of course, Cody Rhodes addressing the WWE Universe, where I've seen a little bit of a criticism. Cody's been champion for a week and a half, and it's getting stale. He's just cutting the same promos over and over again. First of all, what did you want him to do? Second of all, the Bloodline was, in a sense, cutting the same promos every week for years. And it wasn't until the third year that people started getting a little over it. And, of course, additionally, Cody, could be drafted somewhere else at some point. Everybody's on the table with the draft. Once things get shifted around, shuffled around, and then, of course, we get Backlash happening, then we will have someone on SmackDown as champ and Raw as champ, and then there won't be this Cody being on both shows, oversaturating, same promos. It'll be more sporadic, and we'll be back to normal. So just relax, everybody, please, for the love of God. Cody did say that, I don't think The Rock has one more match in him. I do think he has several. So there's your Rock Roman. There's maybe your Cody Rock match. He also, as he was talking to Jey Uso, until we yeet again, I would love Cody versus Jey Uso, WrestleMania 41. How crazy would that be? It doesn't necessarily have to be a blood feud, although if Jey Uso somehow turned on Cody, Jey Uso could win the Royal Rumble. I wouldn't be too shocked if Jey Uso won the Royal Rumble next year, goes against Cody Rhodes, and you get, babyface versus babyface. That would be fascinating to me. I think that would be an incredible match. I'm not sure Jey Uso would win, but I kind of like what that is. So, until we yeet again. Jey Uso, of course, defeated Finn Balor. And now, with that, he's definitely, lo and behold, the best potential challenger for Damian Priest. I will say, assuming Priest gets the victory over Jey Uso at Backlash, let's have Finn Balor challenge Priest at some point as well to further fracture the Judgment Day. Really looking forward to that. And then, of course, the main event, Sami Zayn, Chad Gable. Fun match. Incredible entrance. Kevin Dunn, we hardly knew ye. Jey Uso leaves the building. The camera follows him until he meets up with Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn then walks through where Jey Uso just came from, and the camera follows him through the Montreal crowd in the concourse going crazy, and then into the arena, huge ovation, great match. Sami Zayn gets the win, but after the fact, we get the post-match beatdown. Sami, embraced his wife, and it was a really nice moment. And as soon as he kind of got close to his wife again, Chad Gable from behind hit him with a German suplex. An amazing still photo of Sami Zayn reaching out for his wife's hand as he's getting suplexed into oblivion by Chad Gable. And then a brutal ankle lock on the top of the turnbuckle, kind of facing Sami's wife. So, what an unbelievable just group there of, interactions, camera shots. Those two guys going to have an interesting match, I think, coming up. Depending if I mentioned the Creed brothers earlier. That's who Chad Gable was training with that they showed earlier in the day, not Alpha Academy. So I do believe that Alpha Academy is probably done, although we might see a more formal breakup soon on TV. But give me Team Gable, reminiscent of Team Angle, but with the Creeds. I love that type of dynamic, and those three could compete for the IC and tag titles, respectively, if they do end up being a group. So, I believe that's everything that I'd like to cover in the realm of WWE and outside the ring. If I see anything else, I will mention it, of course. Before we do get to the Dynasty predictions, we did celebrate this past week the 30th anniversary of arguably the greatest WCW pay-per-view from top to bottom, Spring Stampede 1994 from the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago, Illinois. This has it all. Dustin Rhodes in a bunkhouse match against Bunkhouse Buck. Great Muta versus Steve Austin. The craziest Chicago street fight you'd ever see between Max Payne and Cactus Jack versus the Nasty Boys. Vader versus the Boss, formerly the Big Boss Man, in one of the best big man matches you'll ever see. Sting versus Rick Rude in Rick Rude's final pay-per-view match before he gets injured and his career ends abruptly. And then 5 years removed from their incredible trilogy of matches in 1989, Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat square off one final time. Damn great show, and it holds up today. It always holds up, in my opinion. I would recommend it to anybody out there. If you want to watch a WCW show pre-Hulk Hogan, and honestly, it's the last Hogan-free show, because they even mention him at Slamboree the following month, and of course, Bash at the Beach in July is really when Hogan's there, has his match against Flair. But Spring Stampede, it's like right before they even have any inklings that Hulk Hogan could be involved with WCW, and it is an incredible show from top to bottom, as I said. Before we get to Dynasty, as I said, SmackDown tonight, PPG Paints Arena. Looking forward to it. A couple of strong matches already set in stone. It will be a quick 2 hours, I feel. Going to a Raw can be kind of taxing at times. But of course, 2 hours, really strong, really solid. It's quick, it's painless, and it's a sweet spot. 2 hours is a great sweet spot for wrestling shows, so I'm looking forward to checking that out. And I'm sure I'll run into Eisenberg, LeBar, Wrestling Nation, among other folks out there for SmackDown tomorrow night. So looking forward to seeing all those folks in attendance, and hopefully the show will be great. Hopefully, I'd like to see AJ Styles come out the winner. I do think it's the right move. I still think LA Knight has a shot on the card as a United States champion. So assuming he loses this match tonight, LA Knight hopefully would get drafted where the U.S. title is, and maybe you get that SummerSlam match against Logan Paul in Cleveland, which would be Logan Paul's hometown. So I'm not sure. Although, you know what? Logan Paul in his hometown sounds like a loss. So maybe that is the case. But let's get into the main event of it all, AEW Dynasty. This is the newest pay-per-view for AEW. And, say what you want. Say what you will about AEW, and, their TV ratings are okay. Some people would want them to have a little bit higher. I would like to see them get a little bit above 800,000 sometimes, but they haven't, and it's a struggle. Now, I know, especially being on TNT and TBS, the NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, March Madness, baseball beginning, and then the MLB playoffs later in the year. It is a tough road for AEW to have consistently good ratings with this steep of competition with real sports on the networks that are already, have a lineage there for longer than 5 years. So I will say that it is nice to see that they're at least getting at 800,000 viewers each week. I will say this. Even though their TV ratings and what have you might not be the best or what, some fans would want every single week, every single damn pay-per-view that AEW has put out to the world, in my opinion, has knocked it out of the park. I'm really struggling to remember an AEW pay-per-view that didn't fire on all cylinders, didn't have 4 or 5 amazing, incredible, top-notch matches, and then that I wasn't, I don't know if I've ever been dissatisfied from an AEW pay-per-view. And lastly, how many AEW pay-per-views have had some sort of insane surprise in the beginning of the show, in the middle of the show, at the end of the show? So really, they're must-see TV. It's must-see pay-per-view. And I'm looking forward to Dynasty this weekend, this Sunday night. We'll go through the pre-show match. We do have the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn taking on Bullet Club Gold, which is Jay White and the Guns. Winner take all. AEW World Trios title and the Ring of Honor World Six-Man title. Don't know if after this happens they will just combine them. Hopefully they do, but I doubt it. I will take Bullet Club Gold to win those all those titles. Get to the main card, though. Quite a strong card, in my opinion. We do have 9 matches announced. We're going to go from top to bottom here. Adam Copeland, Eddie Kingston, Mark Briscoe versus the House of Black. This is going to be a great match. I have a feeling that the House of Black is going to get the win here. And then maybe that'll lead to Adam Copeland having to defend his TNT title against potentially any of those 3 men, Malachi, Brody, or Buddy. But give me the House of Black because the House always wins. FTW rules match for the FTW title. Hook defends against Chris Jericho. Oh boy, I don't know why Chris Jericho is getting a title shot on pay-per-view at this stage without it really being something significant. If Jericho loses this, I really hope he kind of takes some time off and does his own thing and comes back at a later date. I have no problem with Chris Jericho. I have a problem with the consistency that he is being put on TV. Seemingly, as I've mentioned way early in this podcast, a guy in traffic. Not really doing a lot, not really doing anything crazy, but not also not being featured. He's also on TV. So he's on TV, he's not doing world title matches. He's kind of in the mid-card, but he's never not on AEW TV. And like I mentioned with Rhea Ripley, like, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Like, take Jericho off TV for a couple weeks. So FTW rules, give me Hook to retain here and maybe a stretcher job for Chris Jericho. So then hopefully, maybe, potentially, he can reinvent himself and come back. And we'll be invested again. But until then, it's a slog. We'll see if there's any Taz interactions before the match, though. Jericho and Taz having history. The fact that Jericho's wrestling Taz's son and Taz's son is the champion, Pretty crazy when you think about it. Roddy Strong defends the international title against Kyle O'Reilly. This should be one hell of an in-ring match. These two, of course, Red Dragon. Actually, no, that was Bobby Fish. But nevertheless, two really incredible in-ring competitors, the Messiah, the Backbreaker, and then, of course, the freshly returned Kyle O'Reilly. I've got to think Roddy retains his title here and potentially tries to bring Kyle into the Undisputed Kingdom, although rumors are saying that Adam Cole's injury is worse than anticipated and the recovery is just not going to go as quickly as they'd like, and you might just see not necessarily a breakup, but just a fizzling out of, the whole Undisputed Kingdom. Maybe Wardlow gets out of there and doing his own thing or goes to WWE. I'm waiting for the next shoe to drop in regards to what AEW competitor goes to WWE next or vice versa. And, with the success of Cody, the success of Jade Cargill, the success of Jon Moxley, and I'm thinking that if Wardlow were to go across to WWE, even in NXT, I think he would thrive. I think, give me Wardlow versus Dijak. Give me Wardlow versus, Braun Breaker. There's a lot of potential there, I feel, with Wardlow in WWE or NXT. But I'll take Roderick Strong to retain the international title. House Rules match, Julia Hart versus Willow Nightingale for the TBS title. I think this is a simple match. I think it's a simple prediction. Willow Nightingale will win the TBS title. And then, of course, Mercedes Moné, who potentially could help Willow here in this match, will get that title match next month at Double or Nothing for that TBS title. Man, now we're getting into some crazy matches here. As if, the card wasn't top-heavy with the main couple matches. Like, 5 matches in a row here. I'm gonna finish out this prediction. And it's just stacked. Kazuchika Okada defends the Continental title against Pac. This is going to be ridiculous. I'm still getting over last month when we had Will Ospreay and Takeshita in that insane bout. Yet, I think Pac and Okada could deliver something very similar for this Continental title. I believe Okada will retain. And we'll get to why I believe that here in a moment in another match. But I'd see this as being just a hard-hitting match. A lot of false finishes, but overall just a really hard-hitting match. These two guys can be very stiff, but they're going to work with a lot of finesse as well. And I'm thrilled that this match is happening on pay-per-view. You could say these matches are dream matches, but they're kind of just happening as standard matches for standard titles on AEW pay-per-view, which is really cool to see. It's not, it doesn't have to be shoved down your throat as this is a dream match. That's where I feel there's a disconnect. If you just have the match, I've been a wrestling fan my whole life. I can tell you right now that Pac and Okada is a dream match. But if you just present it as, oh yeah, they're fighting for the Continental title. First of all, that puts the Continental title way over. It's like, wow, these two guys want this belt really bad. And that's a match I really wanted to see, but they're not putting it together because it's a match we wanted to see. They're putting it together because the title's on the line, there's a story behind it, and I think it's going to be more beneficial presenting it that way. Give me Okada to retain. Let's continue. We've got Timeless Toni Storm versus Thunder Rosa for the AEW Women's title. I really hesitate to say that Toni Storm's going to lose here, but I do feel that maybe Mariah May could I think Mariah May is going to be the key here. Either she helps Toni Storm win and then turns on Toni Storm, and we get the Toni Storm-Mariah May match at Double or Nothing, or Mariah May helps Thunder Rosa win, even inadvertently. Thunder Rosa gets the championship, then we get a Mariah May Toni Storm match down the line. Hell, I'll make this prediction right now. I think Thunder Rosa is going to win the AEW Women's title, and I do believe we will see a returning Britt Baker to go against Thunder Rosa at Double or Nothing to reignite their rivalry, which they've had for a few years now. I'd love to see that. Tournament final, the ladder match now. It is a ladder match for the vacant AEW World Tag Team titles. FTR, the Young Bucks. This is their 4th match in AEW together. It's a ladder match. It's going to be nuts. I think this is pretty simple as well. I think FTR could be climbing the ladder. They're going to reach for those tag titles, and then the lights are going to go out, and none other than the scapegoat himself, charisma of a quarter, Jack Perry, will show up, push FTR potentially onto panes of real glass, and the Young Bucks will win the AEW World Tag Team titles, holding the tag titles, Okada holding the Continental title, and going off to the races with that, having 4 really strong elite members, because Jack Perry would absolutely be an elite member if that does in fact happen. So give me the Young Bucks to win the AEW World Tag titles in an insane ladder match. That is my Juice Box prediction. 2 more matches to go over here. Once again, this is a dream match. Now, this one is more presented as such. However, I don't have a problem with it purely because Bryan Danielson, this is his 2nd or 3rd lease on his wrestling career, and I don't know how many more of these matches he can do, let alone have, with arguably the best overall pound-for-pound wrestler in the world right now, Will Ospreay, who's killing it on the mic every week. And again, his match with Takeshita at Revolution was probably it's in the top 3 matches all year for AEW, WWE, just across the board. So Ospreay's on another level. I think him and Danielson are going to have a knockdown, drag out, Pier 6 brawl. But you're going to see some incredible mat wrestling. You're going to see some incredible high-flying wrestling. Danielson's going to give you some submission wrestling as well. I cannot wait for this thing. Will Ospreay should win. I'm not sure if we're going to do some sort of interference or some sort of angle with these two. I'm not sure it's needed. But Will Ospreay, I believe, should get the victory. Continue that momentum as we move forward to Double or Nothing. I think the end goal is Will Ospreay probably challenging for the AEW World title by the time we get to Wembley. So I think his stock needs to continue to rise, and I believe that happens via victory over Bryan Danielson. And maybe Bryan Danielson has a little bit of a, one of those self-reflecting moments of, do I still have it anymore? Is this feasible? And, maybe we start turning the clock a little faster on Bryan Danielson's career. We'll see. I hope not, but I feel like maybe that's where they're going to go in this particular match, because it's definitely the new guard versus the guard of old. Danielson's not, too terribly old. He's 42. Will Ospreay is 30. So 12 years difference, but Will Ospreay is absolutely the future of this business. So I think he should get the W. And then Samoa Joe, Swerve Strickland, AEW World title. Swerve did not get the win at Revolution last month. It was the triple threat with Hangman, and Joe. Oh, man. I'm torn on this match. Because to me, I think it would be perfect if Swerve wins this, and then you get Hangman to come out, and you get, Hangman versus Swerve for the world title at Double or Nothing, which would be your biggest show, your biggest rivalry. I think it'd be amazing to put those two out there. I'm talking about potential, not spoilers, but surprises, stuff like that. Does MJF make an appearance here? I don't believe you're going to see Adam Cole or anything, because if Swerve doesn't win this match, I don't know where we go. The only way I see him not winning is, again, if Hangman potentially interferes. I think it's better off Swerve gets the victory. Hell, Hangman could, the referee is down. Hangman could help get Swerve the victory even though he wants, ultimately just so he could take the title from Swerve. I want you to win the title so that I'm the one that can take it from you because I hate your guts. I feel like their rivalry is it's not the same as Austin Rock, but the similarities of the two having, they hate each other, but I still think there is some sort of competitive respect that they have, whether they show it or not, but it's definitely palpable. So I think that's something that they tap into here maybe, and we get Swerve and Hangman at Double or Nothing for the world title. So I will say Swerve wins the world title here and finally crosses that threshold to be AEW World Champion. So I will recap the entire thing one more time. Bullet Club Gold, I think, takes all the 6-man tag titles on the pre-show. I believe the House of Black win the trios match, and Malachi potentially gets that Cope Open TNT title match in the future. I believe Hook retains against Chris Jericho. Roderick Strong retains against Kyle O'Reilly. Willow Nightingale, potentially with help from Mercedes Moné, will win the TBS title and then will face Moné at Double or Nothing. Okada will retain against Pac in an amazing match. The Young Bucks will get help from Jack Perry, potentially with the lights going out as FTR is climbing the ladder, and the Young Bucks will win the AEW World Tag Team titles, which I believe would be their... Would it be their second reign? This will be their third reign. The Young Bucks would have it for the third time, which would be an AEW record, which they're the Young Bucks. They should have the record for most AEW tag titles, They're the EVPs. They helped create this company, storyline and not, so why not? Why shouldn't they be 3-time tag champs? But yeah, I think Scapegoat Jack Perry assists in that regard. Give me Thunder Rosa winning the AEW Women's World title, and then a returning Britt Baker surprises everybody, comes back and challenges Rosa for that Double or Nothing Women's World title match, or at least has a stare down showing that she's back. I believe that's something that they could absolutely pull off here, as, hey, they go for crazy surprises and interactions all the time on these pay-per-views. I believe anything is possible. Will Ospreay shall defeat Bryan Danielson in what will probably be another incredible bout for Will Ospreay and Danielson, respectively. I'm not sure if I could pick what match of the night would be looking at the card, although, dare I say, the ladder match probably would get that distinction. But I personally am more excited for Pac and Okada. But Ospreay Danielson, if Ospreay's in the match, likely that'll be the best match. So what the hell am I talking about? And then I do believe, I firmly think, finally, Swerve Strickland is victorious, takes home the AEW World Championship, and finally overcomes all those different title opportunities he's had, and finally grabs the proverbial brass ring, the gold, the AEW World title, eventually setting up the match with Hangman at Double or Nothing in May. So, yeah, that is my Dynasty predictions for AEW Dynasty this weekend. Of course, we had also the, in and out of the ring. We had some Raw talk, some SmackDown stuff, some outside of the ring discussion. Like I said, keep the social medias up and running next week to see where you might find me outside of the Juice Box, located somewhere else. I'll be throwing my straw in some other podcasts. So I will be tweeting out those links as those episodes get recorded and are finalized, and I have more information. So keep an eye out for that to hear me blabber on about an ECW pay-per-view and then about some random wrestling topics as set up by another gracious host. Hopefully with a lot of patience, because I can yap for a while. But as always, before we close out, follow me on Twitter at Juicy Steen, at Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram. You can find The Juice Box on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, juicysteen.podbean.com, and on Spotify. And if you listen to it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give it a 5-star review. Hell, write a review. Any positive comment, any positivity overall will help the show moving forward. So if you listen to the show, I assume you like the show. So show some support for the show. It takes like a minute. That's all I could ask for this show. This is episode 75. Can't believe we made it to 75 episodes, but damn it, I love it. I love pro wrestling. Shout out to Wrestling Nation, keeping the wrestling world for myself and my friends alive. You know, it's nice having that as well. And looking forward to seeing them and Eisenberg, LeBar, and everybody out there traveling to Pittsburgh for SmackDown tonight. Cannot wait to see what transpires. I believe Bayley's going to retain her women's title, and I think AJ Styles has a date with Destiny and Cody Rhodes at Backlash. I believe he will defeat LA Knight to avenge his WrestleMania loss that he suffered a mere 12 days ago. So looking forward to SmackDown tonight. Hopefully I see some of you guys out there. Cannot wait to see what transpires. As for me, I'm Juice Springsteen, and I hope you guys tune in next week for another edition of The Juice Box. That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.